Neeraj, moving on to you. I think when we were prepping for this session, you brought up a wonderful point about, the subscription economy. Okay, and how you believe that this is something that's always been coming, but I think COVID gives it that extra boost. Love to hear your views on that again in detail.
Sure. Hi. Morning to all my fellow panelists and to all the viewers out there. So before I respond to your direct question, Ashish, I wanted to draw upon some very interesting points which both Alok and Puneet made, as well as the last points on Tanuja. See, the Indian media entertainment sector as we know it is very deeply rooted within the film economy. Deepak in his opening comments swayed between 1,500 and 2,500 films or so. It's more like 1,700-1,800 films, about 16, 17 different languages, almost about 3.5 to 4 billion admission tickets that were traditionally sold on an annual basis. We were to look at it just 3 months back. And this component, the fact that this culture, the artists, the talent, the stars, who some of these stars we've known to have gone about in a year endorsing as many as 22 products which are advertised on Puneet's channels across different categories, etc. So it's not a component, that is, there's no two ways that, what we are staring at is not a short-term sort of thing. There's very significant changes in habit that are likely to happen. But I believe the resilience is already being sort of mentioned here. To Alok's point, a couple of other thoughts with regard to just what can be done in screens itself. Numerous countries have attempted. Another category that, apart from what you've already spoken about, Alok, you may want to look at is like esports as a category for opportunity in terms of viewing, whatever. Huge amount of growth that's happening in that space. And clearly, I think the production aspect has been one of the biggest deterrents. So we saw in the first 4-5 weeks, our good friend Sunil in the BARC weekly reviews would keep talking about how television had grown at one time, I believe, almost about 44-45% or thereabouts in terms of viewership, but yet advertising was down 70% or thereabouts. Now, we emanate from that, and our business is completely a digital business. We've, in the last 7-8 weeks, or almost about 10 weeks now, every time I've spoken to friends of mine across different industry, we happen to be in one of those unique categories, which are, I can say, have probably, I think everyone's impacted, but we're probably lesser impacted. At one level, our consumption has risen. So our video platform, which is Hungama Play, in the first 4 weeks itself saw 66% growth in consumption. The following month, it was a little, lower at about, say, about 30-odd%, but that consumption pattern is going. What that led to is people beginning to see, we also sort of sense that by and large, viewing on OTT platforms was still a very personal kind of experience. And if you see the first batch of programming, there are about 20-25 OTT services that are there in the market across different languages and platforms. The first batch of content programming, for some reason, was sort of filled with a fair amount of profanity and occasional nudity. It was almost liberating for creators to have a platform in a certain form and work around. And for that reason alone, it was not necessarily coming into the living rooms of average middle class homes, as it were. It was still a very much a personal device kind of consumption pattern of sorts. We, as a company, have been doing about 10-12 shows on an annual basis, and would be releasing one show for about 4 to 6 weeks or so. we noticed the same sort of scenario because we have about 7 shows which we are not able to complete right now. But what happened was something different. We got other creators who had done shows, independent filmmakers, who started coming across and were looking for platforms for delivery in a certain way. So that was another aspect that came around. But I think the biggest move, coming to your point, Ashish, is what I sense is this is a very, very different world. So we shouldn't be surprised about cinema halls doing screenings and private screenings, etc. That's happened. I mean, one of the most fascinating things that I saw was Domino's, the pizza company in India. If you go even now, they're selling atta. And I mean it, they're actually selling basic essentials. It's like you can buy into oil, this, whatever, etc. And this is leading to, I think, a massive surge that you're likely to see as far as the core subscription-driven economy is concerned. My own belief is that what we saw in India between 2016-17, which was the first sort of 4G digital wave of sorts, where you had massive adoption purely because of drop in data tariffs, etc. Now that we've moved from almost a 15x growth of what data consumption used to be till 2-3 years back, this one is likely to result in a lot more collaborations between media as companies as well. I believe, businesses like print, which unfortunately at this point in time have fallen off the cliff, will need to look at, subscription structures. And on a standalone basis, they may not necessarily be able to do that. So in which case they will co-opt with Puneet's OTT service as an example. They may co-opt with numerous others which are there in the market. And that then creates a very interesting opportunity, because the next 3 to 4 years, I wouldn't be surprised if there are 500 million consumers who are willing to allocate about 100 rupees a month for a bouquet of 4-5 services that they may go in and out of. They may they may use it for 2-3 months, then find some content which they will like on another platform. And that, when you look at it, is roughly about a 75,000 crore market, perhaps the equivalent size of what the broader television industry is already right now, and 5x the time of the Indian theatrical business, as it were. That's going to happen very rapidly. And the reason it's going to happen very rapidly, Ashish, is we've seen the power of ARPU growth in the telecom ecosystem. Airtel is a company is at 154, already itching before the end of this calendar year to be at 200. And enough analysts who are talking about over the next 2 years that ARPU to go to about 300 as an example. All of that is not going to come only towards, data, as in, it's going to be driven on the back of services as well. And for each of these companies, every 10 rupees of ARPU increase is anything between 3 to 3,500 crores of enhancement on EBITDA on an annual basis. And a big part of that, to me, is going to come back into the entertainment economy in some form.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And there's a question from the audience, which I think is cut out for you, Neeraj. Being a serial entrepreneur yourself, is it a favorable time for new entrepreneurs to enter an OTT business today?
So the short answer of this is it a good time for an entrepreneur to get into whatever? My answer will always be yes. You've got to create the, I mean, there's a new terminology, Ashish, and you will be very familiar with this because it's folks like you who go around spreading this sort of stuff, which is called the low touch economy right now. The low touch economy is a whole new business out there. And I'm amazed, it takes you all just 4-5 weeks at times, and you sort of come out with trends which are, which we will be using in forums like this for the next 4-5 years. I remember a term which we used, Puneet will recollect this year, for almost 10 years, and we forget using it, we almost abused it, which was called convergence. 2005 में शुरू किया था, अब जाकर के, Now it's too passé even to refer to it as convergence of sorts. Yeah.
Okay.
No, but to the point on OTT, I think what Indian audiences are likely to see, and I'm sure Tanuja would like to hear this, is for far too long, if you see our programming, because of a single TV household scenario, with the power of the remote being with the homemaker in Middle India as such, you had a very democratized sort of, kind of programming across all the 6-7 GECs across languages. Everyone would have a dance reality show, you will have this show, this, whatever. Whereas when you go into the big bad world of the OTT ecosystem, you discover almost 30 different genres and categories. I mean, biopics is a great sort of thing. It needn't be, because that's stuff that can be shot and put together as an interesting way with very much the today's kind of shooting environments as an example. It's just one of those kind of examples. So I think there'll be a lot more innovation, because people, when they get into the OTT ecosystem, it's more like going down the rabbit hole of sorts, and you're constantly discovering more and more. And that hopefully will create, an interesting set of, consumers and viewers for us.